The European Union has decided to commit considerable resources in Pakistan for rural development. 60% of the population lives in rural areas. Human development indicators are low access to basic services. These are conditions enough to justify our intervention. Between ongoing and programs in the pipeline, we spend something like 350 million euros. I think there are 13 programs currently open. We always follow a community-driven development approach, changing in complexity according to the conditions we find on the ground. We shift from purely grant-based approach where investment capital is given to the NGO, which then works with communities, to another extreme where investment capital is shifted to the government itself. Building institutions at local level is the main focus. When you have them, you can do everything. The institutions we focus on are communities. I'm sure you remember the Three Musketeers. And their motto was, one for all for one. Those musketeers realized the value of acting collectively. They had a common interest, a common objective, and putting together capacities was the best way rather than acting individually. If you extend this to a community, well, clearly dynamics change, needs change, but you have to identify common objectives. And to do that, it's not rocket science. It's about getting together, identify a leader, develop capacities, and save. Because you need capital to do things. And to do all this, you need somebody able to do it. And you cannot think that every week, every month, you will be having always somebody going there, because there are thousands of communities. And this is why we work in Pakistan with the rural support programs. Why? Because they have a tested methodology, sensitivity to context. They are embedded in the culture. And their methodology is rather simple. They work on what we call the 3 tiers social mobilization. What they do is to work at the smallest level of communities, community organizations. That's not enough, because one single community is isolated. You have to scale up in order for your voice to be heard. And then we have village organization, a number of community organizations gather together. But then you're more ambitious. You realize that some dynamics, economic, political, are still higher than you. And we create local support organization. So it's a federation. To create community organizations, you need facilitators. And it's a very complex work indeed. Prioritization is a very difficult process. The strongest will impose the agenda. The poorest may be marginalized. All these things have to be understood. The bigger the group, the more the challenges, the more capacities they need to provide, the more the dynamics of distribution of power have to be taken into account. So to enable a community to act collectively, you need a facilitator to bring together people to identify needs, providing the right capacities in management and leadership, and identify priorities, develop what they call a village development plan. Where we find enabling conditions, we have more complex packages building on budget support, technical assistance and grants. The European Union has a big budget support in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It's about 80 million euros, all focused in Malakand division, because it was coming out from the Talibanization experience of 2009, followed by consecutive floods which wiped out completely the entire region. So there was a need to go there. There was also an interest by the government in bridging the gap between state and communities. The advantage of using budget support is quite self-evident, because it builds on country-owned systems, so it gives ownership. The logic is to empower the beneficiary country, use the systems of the beneficiary country, give the country the responsibility to spend the money. We need some conditions, which is the presence of policies, legal regulatory framework. And if we don't have them, then we try to help the government to create them. Resources, additionally, are invested in complementary, if you want, activities, which respond to the needs that communities express. We may range from providing specific skills to having social programs to focus on women empowerment, credit, microcredit, community physical infrastructures like bridges, roads, water and sanitation, schools. And another big dossier is energy production through renewable energies. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we have a very important component of energy production through community-managed micro hydro power generation plants. Sustainability is a challenge. Everybody has its role to play. Government has a very important role to play. Private sector, institutions themselves, and the role of the facilitator, the NGO, changes through time. As much as your kid goes to school, the institution grows through time, and we'll need less interventions, less support, and more skilled interventions, more software, less hardware. So sustainability is a longer process, and it changes through time. The role of a donor is to create the enabling conditions, understanding what is your role in time, now 5-10 years, and get out. The core logic is that unity makes strength.